I'm actually shocked. You know, Kotaku, they're a website that's kind of famous for their cringe. They do a bunch of reporting that's decent sometimes, but some of their stuff, their big clickbait headlines, their crazy in-depth reporting that's just so off the wall. Kotaku is a website that's definitely very, very hated by the hardcore gaming community, but this one, it might be some of their worst work ever. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and this weekend I decided to relax. I actually just kind of sat around and watched a bunch of anime, but several of you subscribers have sent me this article that's called Pokemon Go's eggs aren't loot boxes, they're fun presents. Now initially, this seems a bit strange. Obviously, it's getting completely freaking mocked. People are ripping it to shreds. Big game developers, a bunch of people are actually jumping on board and saying that this is very, very disgraceful. But I want to try and be open-minded. Before I actually started to just live react to the article itself, I decided to read it. Because sometimes you have a very, very aggressive title like this, but the actual article is much more plain. It's not. This is a seriously awful article, and part of the reason I hate this so much is because it is incredibly long, it is incredibly in-depth. The entire thing is defending microtransactions in a Pokemon game. Straight up freaking loot boxes in a game that, in my opinion, is at least partially directed towards children. Let's begin things here by just checking out some key excerpts, some specific paragraphs in here that are definitely the most appalling. Now, keep in mind, this is a well-paid games journalist. This is a guy who's just, his job is to ethically report on video games, and he is about to spend a lot of time saying that this is a good microtransaction. Pokemon Go developer Niantic is testing a feature that lets players see what might be inside the game's eggs before they walk the many miles to hatch them. It appears to be in response to the argument that the game's eggs are akin to loot boxes. There's an awful lot that could be better about Pokemon Go, but I'd argue that demanding its eggs be held to the same standards as the most cynical and cruel of EA and Activision loot box behavior really isn't necessary. Okay, so right away, you're literally saying that gamers deserve less information. You're saying an ability that could actually remove some of the randomness, an ability that would make this game more playable by any standards, is somehow a bad thing. You are defending loot boxes here, sir. Let's scroll down here for a bit to see the extra just juicy cringe. Loot boxes in general are an exploitative tool used by developers and publishers to get players to spend money on a game they've already bought. They imply that to get the most out of the game and to get an advantage against others, you need to keep spending. Keep paying for more sealed containers that might contain items necessary. They suck, they're nasty, they're dirty, and it'd be great to see games get rid of them. Well, guess what, buddy? This right here is a loot box. Like, the thing that's most shocking about this article, and part of the reason I'm making this video, is I feel like stuff like this is damaging to the industry. I feel like having somebody come out here with a Kotaku hat on, who is somebody that's job is to report on the dark recesses of gaming, talking about the highs and the lows, and to say that one of the most scummy business practices is good actually, is a net negative to this industry. But I'm not alone in this. What's kind of been most fascinating to me is that the original tweet about this has been very hotly ridiculed. A lot of people are kind of lining up to just beat the heck out of Kotaku because this is obviously a very easy lightning rod of controversy. But what kind of caught my attention is that it's not just random gamers piping up. This isn't just some random people. A lot of these are actually industry titans themselves. A lot of these people are people that I like to follow, like Ryan Brown. Ryan Brown, this guy actually is one of the guys who works, he's PR for Super Rare, really nice guy. Corey Balrog, the director of God of War and God of War Ragnarok, is just laughing at it. Like, it's shocking to me. Now, I like this tweet a lot. Joe Merrick, this is such an easy, concise, and well-reasoned response. There's a few problems here, I'm afraid. Just because you have a free incubator doesn't mean it's not a loot box. Gacha games often have free pulls. Many Pokemon are exclusive to eggs, and the shiny variants act as an incentive. Egg Pokemon do have an advantage over wild Pokemon. Now, in case you've never heard of gacha mechanics, basically, there is a genre that's very, very popular over in Japan, and now these games are starting to bleed west, but it's basically randomized pull mechanics, where the game itself will be free, something like Genshin Impact, but then every time you decide to try and get another character, it's randomized. It's practically a loot crate with a character inside, and the idea behind it is that you'll keep wanting to do the next pull. You're going to want the next card, you're going to want the next cool thing, and that randomness is part of the addictive nature to it. This is pretty clearly just loot boxes with a fresh coat of paint. It's smiling Pokemon that are trying to just convince you to do that next big pull that gets you to swipe your credit card. But to go back to the article here for a second, this is definitely the part that baffles me the most. And part of the reason that this journalist is something that I don't ever want to read his stuff ever again. It's certainly a little shady. The game gets you used to having plenty of incubators on hand right up until you don't, which is basically the free way to hatch eggs. They're often included in rewards for completing the earliest tasks, but then when you're comfortable, the supply runs out. Yeah, they're obviously a dealer analogy. It runs out just so you can get more. Oh my god, but really, you don't have to. In fact, it's incredibly unnecessary to do so. This is what annoys me, is when people defend the most scummy business practices in games by saying that it is optional. You know what? A lot of times stuff isn't actually optional. Back in the day, you paid $60 for a game, you got all the content in it. You got the bosses, the side quests, the extended little hidden secrets, you got the lore, you got the characters, you got the combat. Not to be a boomer about it, but back in my day, you got a game for one simple price. Now, I've actually been pretty open-minded about the idea of certain games as a service projects. I think that even though I'm not really a fan of Fortnite, I think it's interesting how a game could be free up front and have some cosmetic skins and stuff that are supposed to incentivize you later. Loot crates, though, those are something that I always feel particularly malicious. The idea behind, like, okay, buy this and buy this and buy this, and eventually the game gets fun. Paying for resources in games is just by far worse than anything else, because it's basically saying that, do you want to win? You need to freaking pay the price. Now, I actually thought something was interesting here. So at the very bottom of any Kotaku article, there is the comment section. Now, typically, the comment section on the Kotaku website is usually very much in favor of the article. I guess it's people who happen to have a Kotaku account. These are probably the people that are going to be the most pleasant to the Kotaku authors. But even these people have been absolutely roasting this pathetic excuse of a defense. Are you paying money for a random chance of getting something you want? That's a loot box. Oh my god, but you aren't paying for money for a random chance. You could pay money to reduce the amount of what? Shut up. Okay, this dude's a dummy. Absolutely, from the ground up, this is a loot box. They're Pokemon loot boxes. You can try and frame the argument how you want. You can bend things around. You can try and jump through whatever hoop you want. But I'd be curious to see if this guy has like Pokemon stock or something. Because the idea of trying to defend such an obviously brazenly bad sentiment, it's just completely got lost on me. I cannot even fathom why somebody would do this. But it also just makes me kind of just shocked because this article just once again hurts Kotaku's reputation. Like if you look at any of the freaking comments, every person is mocking this. Oh, the Kotaku doing the Kotaku thing. Here's freaking Yang Yi doing quote unquote loot boxes. Like every single person is saying they are 100% loot boxes. The deeper you scroll, it's every person agreeing it's loot boxes. Now, sometimes the group consensus can be off. I'm not just saying this is an appeal to authority. I'm not just saying because everybody says they're loot boxes, they're loot boxes. Understandably and scientifically, if you are paying money to get a random Pokemon, guess what? That's a freaking loot box. And I guess Kotaku just says that that's great. Maybe Kotaku loves loot boxes now. Maybe the idea of these predatory business practices are suddenly fun and whimsical as long as they got a great color palette. What do you think about this cringe? Please tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. I have had people again asking about my frameless glasses. I do this because most of the time I'm wearing these, and they are very, very reflective. So that way there's not a crazy reflection in my glasses while I'm reading stuff. I put on my fake glasses so you don't see the lines on my nose. You know what? There, I explained it. Stop putting empty glasses. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.